In the heart of Manhattan's Stork Club, February 1946, tension hung thick in the air when Lucky Luciano stepped into the private lounge. Every gangster around the table rose to their feet, except for one. Bumpy Johnson stayed planted in his chair, puffing on a cigar, his gaze fixed steadily on the figure who'd just brought the whole Italian underworld under one banner. Luciano's guards instinctively went for their pistols, but he signaled them to stand down. The African-American man opposite him held sway over an asset far more valuable than brute force, the lucrative numbers game in Harlem. Whatever Bumpy uttered in the following minute could seal a partnership that reshaped the face of organized crime for good, or ignite a conflict that drenched the city's avenues in blood. It was February 1946, with World War II freshly behind us, and the nation basking in victory. Yet amid the hazy dens of New York's underworld, another battle was simmering. Lucky Luciano, the architect of the modern mob, had walked free from Danbury prison after 9 long years inside. The authorities had cut a bargain. Leverage your ties to the Italian waterfront to aid our war effort, and we'd shave time off your term. Luciano had held up his end, but the deal came with a sting. Exile. Within 3 weeks, federal agents would haul him off to Italy for keeps. True to form, Luciano refused to depart without fortifying his domain. The 5 families stood aligned. Frank Costello helmed the Luciano outfit in his stead. Vito Genovese plotted from afar in Italy. Albert Anastasia gripped the waterfront tight, all systems primed, save for a single snag. Harlem, that underground lottery, the numbers racket, raked in fortunes weekly and was exploding uptown. The Italians craved a slice. They'd attempted a grab once, in 1935, when Dutch Schultz forced his entry. But Schultz blew it badly by ignoring a soft-spoken, impeccably attired fixer called Ellsworth, Johnson. Schultz wound up riddled with bullets in a Jersey bar. 11 years on, Luciano eyed the prize Schultz had fumbled. Yet, Luciano played it sharper than his predecessor. Storming Harlem with firepower alone wouldn't cut it. Negotiation came first. Respect had to be extended, a proposition laid out. So, Luciano dispatched an invitation to Bumpy. Time to confer. Bumpy let a full week pass in silence, a silence that spoke volumes to Luciano. This would be no cakewalk. The Stork Club, perched on East 53rd Street, ranked as Manhattan's pinnacle of nightlife exclusivity. Frank Sinatra crooned its stage. J. Edgar Hoover sipped its cocktails. And on the evening of February 18th, 1946, Lucky Luciano booked out the full VIP space. He arrived flanked by 6 associates. Frank Costello, his interim chief. Albert Anastasia, the supreme killer. Meyer Lansky, the numbers man. Plus 3 enforcers whose body counts defied tallying. Bumpy Johnson entered solo. At 40, he cut a sharp figure in a custom navy 3-piece suit, paired with a spotless white shirt. No necktie, as always. A golden chain dangled from his vest. His haircut gleamed fresh, his Oxfords buffed to perfection. In his grip, a sleek leather case. The guards tensed, fingers itching for iron, but Luciano lifted a single digit. Back off. Bumpy strode by them coolly, ignoring their presence, his heels clicking sharply against the polished stone. He claimed the chair at the table's head, the boss's throne, and settled in. He set the briefcase down, then fished out a stogie. The room froze. Costello's face hardened. Anastasia's palm inched to his belt, but Luciano merely grinned. He clocked Bumpy's maneuver. No slight here. This was a power play, setting the dialogue's ground rules sans a single syllable. Luciano claimed the spot right across. Bumpy struck a match to his cigar, inhaled deeply, and exhaled a plume skyward. Luciano steepled his fingers atop the wood, his tone even and deliberate, honed from dealings with tycoons and thugs alike. Discerning the nuances between them, Bumpy gave a measured nod, uttered not a word. Quote, 4. Luciano pressed on. Quote, 5. He locked eyes with Bumpy. Quote, 6. Silence gripped the chamber. Frank Costello edged closer, scrutinizing Bumpy's every twitch. Meyer Lansky's digits tapped a faint rhythm on the surface. Albert Anastasia's hand crept toward his piece. He cracked his knuckles sharply. Bumpy inhaled deeply from his cigar once more. And if I reviews? Luciano's grin held steady, though his gaze turned icy. Quote, 8. The words carried no fury or edge, just the unshakable conviction of someone who'd forged a vast network on that very rule. Bumpy placed his cigar in the elegant glass ashtray, flipped open his attaché case, and extracted a lone photo. He pushed it toward the center of the table. Luciano lifted it, his expression unchanging, yet his grip on the corners grew firm. The image captured a storage facility in Red Hook, Brooklyn, one of Anastasia's betting dens. Right there in front, exchanging a handshake with a recognized police chief, stood Albert Anastasia in person. Bumpy murmured softly. Quote, 10. The space fell into a profound hush. Costello's fingers edged toward his coat. Anastasia half rose from his seat, but Luciano fixed his eyes on the picture, then on Bumpy. Is this a threat? Not at all, Bumpy replied. This is me honoring you. I could have forwarded these straight to the prosecutor, or the press. I could have raised your entire setup before you caught wind of it, but I held back. He shifted closer. You showed up in Harlem, seeking an alliance, yet true alliances demand parity. What you proposed, that wasn't collaboration. It was a conquest wrapped in politeness. Luciano laid the photo flat. For the initial time since Bumpy's arrival, real admiration flickered in his eyes. Bumpy retrieved his cigar, savored a deliberate puff, and allowed the inquiries to linger. Or, quote, Siganin. He gestured out the window at the glowing skyline of Uptown. Quote, 17. Costello opened his mouth to chime in, but Luciano shut him down with a glance. Bumpy pressed on. He reclined, his tone deepening. The ensuing quiet was total. Meyer Lansky shattered it. He faced Luciano. Quote, 20. Anastasia remained skeptical. Quote, 21. Bumpy cut in before Luciano responded. Quote, 22. Lucky Luciano locked eyes with Bumpy Johnson for what seemed an endless stretch. Then, gradually, he chuckled, not derisively, but with true mirth. He rose, offering his hand. Bumpy got to his feet, clasped the hand solidly. Quote, 25. Frank Costello let out a breath. Meyer Lansky grinned. Even Anastasia eased back into his chair as the strain dissolved from the air. Luciano lingered on the handshake a beat longer. Quote, 26. Bumpy cracked a smile, one seldom seen utterly real. Quote, 27. 3 weeks on, Lucky Luciano set sail for Italy. He never set foot on U.S. ground again, yet the pact he struck with Bumpy Johnson endured for the following 22 years. The policy racket thrived. Bumpy remitted the 10% punctually. The Italians funneled banking via upright covers. When Bumpy faced arrest in 1951, even after getting shipped off to Alcatraz, Frank Costello stepped up to ensure Bumpy's family had everything they needed. And by the time Bumpy stepped free from behind bars in 1963, their agreement remained rock solid. The encounter at the Stork Club turned into folklore among the mob's inner circles. It wasn't the bloodshed or intimidation that made it iconic, but rather how two figures from utterly opposite backgrounds came together, hashed out a partnership, and avoided tearing one another apart. Luciano later confided to his contacts back in Italy. Bumpy Johnson stood out as the sharpest mobster I ever crossed paths with, and the deadliest too, since he didn't wait for my admiration. He commanded it. Bumpy stayed silent on the whole affair in any public forum. Those nearest to him, however, revealed he held onto that photo of Anastasia, right there in his workspace until his dying day. Not to intimidate anyone, but to serve as a constant nudge. True authority doesn't hinge on who draws their weapon quickest. It boils down to who has the brains to hold back. If this tale of mutual regard, clever maneuvering, and the pact that reshaped the criminal landscape moved you, go ahead and smash that subscribe icon while tossing in a thumbs up. Pass it along to a friend who ought to learn about the figure who forced the syndicate to yield to Harlem's might. Drop your thoughts below. What move would you have made in that tense space? Stay battling for your throne, and catch you on the flip side.